Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome to another video. In this one, I'm going to be looking at the England squad and who I think the 7 players should be dropped from Gareth Southgate's squad before the Euros are. Obviously, there's been a lot of news around circulating today as I record this on Thursday that James Maddison, Jarell, Quansah, and Curtis Jones are out already. So they will be in my 7-man list, and I think to be honest, they probably would have been anyway. After watching England at close quarters at St James's Park on Monday night, who else do I think should not be in the squad, and who do I think should start that first game in Gelsenkirchen against Serbia? Well, I think the other names to list straight away: James Trafford, Lewis Dunk, Conor Gallagher, and Jarrad Bowen. I think those are the 7 names. Those 4 plus Quansah, Jones, and Maddison. And the reason I think those 4, a mixture of not particularly impressing on Monday night. I think Gallagher did okay, but I don't think he did enough to get in ahead of somebody like Adam Wharton, who's come out the blue really. And there is always 1 or 2 players who come through and sort of make us state their claim. And both of those are in midfield, really, in Mainu and Wharton. Wharton is someone who just is brilliant on the ball. He keeps the ball moving. He never stands still. He adds so much to the sort of dynamism in midfield to Palace. I think he can do that for England as well. Showed that a little bit when he came on Monday at St James's against Bosnia and Herzegovina. Gallagher, as I say, did well, but England were too passive in the first half, and a lot of the reason for that was static midfield, and obviously he was part of that. Bowen, again, didn't really do much. Thought he offered very little. He's been in obviously good form for West Ham this season, and I think there is going to be one major player who leaves the squad because there has to be. There's too much quality in this team for there not to be 1 or 2 big players. I think Maddison in there as well is another one who will believe and will be upset that he's not in the squad. Will believe he's done enough, and he's definitely good enough to play for England at a Euros. But you've got to make these tough calls, and I don't think that Maddison is the wrong one given the form of the other players in similar position. Foden absolutely starts, and I've said that on Monday. I've said that so many times, and I'll say it again later when I get into what I think my first 11 should be. Cole Palmer did well in the game on Monday and has been in phenomenal form for Chelsea. He was my Football Writers Player of the Year. Actually, I voted for him over Foden because just of the impact he's had at Stamford Bridge. Eberechi Eze offers something different that nobody else does. That little box of tricks that nobody else really has, I think, in the same way. And Anthony Gordon, injured on Monday, didn't play at his home ground, St James's, but has been phenomenal this season for Newcastle and really impressed for England as well. And I think, as I said on Monday night, I want to reiterate, I think there's too much quality in this squad and this team to need to funnel players into positions that don't really fit. I think that's why the golden generation failed too often, was because Sven-Goran Eriksson would play players in the wrong position because he just wanted the best players on the pitch. I think there's enough quality throughout this squad to play players in the right position, and that starts with Foden playing in central midfield and an advanced role, Jude Bellingham playing deeper, more like he did at Borussia Dortmund than he has at Real Madrid, Declan Rice holding midfield. But again, I think there's so much quality there. You can be more fluid and you can dominate games. There's a midfield there that's got everything. It's physical, it's got dynamism, it's got energy, it's got creativity, it's got positional sense and intelligence. It's got absolutely everything. I think that midfield is really picks itself. I think Bukayo Saka injured on Monday, and this is the other thing about the 7 that Southgate is going to name on Saturday before the tournament. It all depends on fitness. Luke Shaw's returned to training on Wednesday. He should now be fit for the tournament. Whether he's done enough to prove himself, only Gareth Southgate knows. That'll impact. They were saying on Rob Dorset was saying on Sky Sports News earlier that'll impact the likes of Joe Gomez, but he's on my list. Ezri Quansah as well. I wasn't particularly happy that there were 2 fullbacks in Trippier and Quansah who started the game on Monday who aren't natural in those positions. Trippier obviously is a right back, but he's playing at left back. Quansah, a centre back by trade, playing at right back. I don't like the fact that there's so few specialist options in those positions, but given that, I think it means the fact that Quansah can play at right back and centre back, the fact that Joe Gomez can play across the back 4 will absolutely save them and their positions. The other thing, obviously, is up front. Is there a question of the fact that Ivan Toney didn't come on at St James's Park? Does that mean that he isn't in the squad and Ollie Watkins is ahead of him? To be honest, I think I would pick both. I think there's a thing that Sir Bobby Robson always used to say, and Sir Alex Ferguson always used to say, you want as many strikers as you can get in a squad. You want as many options, as many game changers in a squad as you can get. And I think that's why I would take both. I think Ollie Watkins is another option who can play on the left. Ivan Toney's penalty record and the fact that he is so physical and so good on the turn. Watkins runs in behind. Obviously, two very capable understudies to Kane. But I think as we saw on Monday, if Kane's fit, Kane plays as much as possible. And we the other thing to say about these squads is maybe a lot of the stuff we're talking about is going to be null and void in a month, because if you remember the build up to the Euros in 2021, delayed from 2020, obviously, Jesse Lingard, coming off a fantastic loan spell at West Ham, played the first game, I think, in those warm-up games, and everyone thought he was going to be involved. Wasn't then selected for the final squad, and all that discourse sort of went to waste before the World Cup in 2022 in Qatar. All about James Maddison, who was at the time in superb form for Leicester, had a bit of an injury problem, looked to shake it off, went to Qatar, didn't play a minute. That didn't matter as well. There was no game in which anyone was saying we should be selecting Maddison. Maddison would have made a difference here. That just didn't happen, and I think that's going to happen quite a lot for the likes of Wharton, for the likes of possibly Eze, Gordon, perhaps. These are all players who will be selected for the squad, but may not start many games. I'm going to run through who I think should start in the games in a minute. I'll put a selection on screen. I think there's a couple of names here that we're never going to be likely to play in this squad and get in the squad for the full Euros, and that was Quansah and Jones, Trafford as well. Wharton was probably named as one of those players who you wouldn't select, but I think the way he has performed for Palace at the end of the season, and the way what his skill set is, and why he is so good at keeping the team ticking over, I think that's something that you need as much of as you can in a squad, and I think that's a trait that he has over the industrial skill set that Conor Gallagher has, and I think I'd rather have Wharton in there over Gallagher. Bowen is somebody who, just again, numbers, I think there's more question marks over England on the left side of midfield than there is on the right. You've got Foden who can play out there, Palmer who can play out there, behind Saka, who should start in my mind, but it's a little bit less obvious on the left. So I think I would go for Gordon and Grealish on the left over Bowen, and that's why Bowen doesn't get in. As I say, I'm keeping all three strikers up front, and Toney and Watkins behind Kane. Lewis Dunk is the other player, as I said, in centre half, who just doesn't offer anything for England. I've never watched him for England and thought that he suits it well. I think he's a player that, when you look at Mark Gay, when you look at Ezri Konsa, when you look at Jarrad Branthwaite, I think they're all much more capable options in a physical sense, in a sort of athletic sense. I think that's what England will need to have defensive strength. And I think beyond that, James Trafford is a name for himself. I think he was just sort of brought into this squad because Nick Pope was not fully fit early enough at the end of the season to put himself into contention. So those are the 7 players, and I'm going to quickly run through the team that I would pick for the game against Serbia on June 16th in Gelsenkirchen. And in goal, obviously, Jordan Pickford. As I say, he was the one player that started on Monday at St James's that I think was always likely to start that game. The other 10 were sort of debatable. Left back, yes, I would plunge for Luke Shaw. Hasn't played for a long time, but there's so few options there. He's the only out-and-out left back in the squad. Therefore, I think he has to play if he's fit. John Stones and Mark Gay in the defence. I think the issue with playing Maguire is he's not proven himself to be fit. I think that's the difference between him and Shaw, is that there are other options, and Gay impressed me both at the end of last season for Palace. Also on Monday, I thought he was very good. Kyle Walker at right back. This is the situation I mentioned. My entire video was based on the premise of what do we do with Trent Alexander-Arnold. If you're looking at the quality of the player and listing the best players that England have and putting the best 11 in place, absolutely, Trent Alexander-Arnold gets in that squad hands down. He's probably England's 4th best player on my count, behind Kane, Bellingham and Foden. But is he a better right back for England than Kyle Walker? And I think the answer is no. I would play Walker every day of the week at right back, just for that sort of defensive, additional defensive structure, but also you don't really lose anything in an attacking sense either. In midfield, as I say, Rice, Bellingham and Foden. I think Trent, again, there's the other position. Do you play him in a double pivot with with Rice. I think again, I think he's done well enough in spells in that game. I know he moved to right back, but he did well enough in spells in that game in midfield to sort of put himself in contention. But if is he good enough to usurp Bellingham, Foden, or Rice? Absolutely not. So that's why that midfield picks itself. And then right midfield, if he's fit, Saka. If not, then Cole Palmer is more than an able deputy. I prefer him in more central areas, but I think he's more than capable of replacing Saka against Serbia. Kane up front, and this is the contentious one. I would start with Anthony Gordon if he is fit. Obviously, didn't play on Monday, but he is the most in form and natural fit for that left midfield role. He ended the season in fantastic form for Newcastle, impressed against Brazil in March as well. I don't think he's only played himself into contention for the squad. I think he should start because he's the most naturally gifted and in form left midfielder. You've got Jack Grealish, but his form has been patchy for Man City. That's why I would go for Anthony Gordon. And, perhaps Eberechi Eze off the bench is a really good option as well. I think, as I mentioned, he's the only player who offers that sort of that sort of magic in his boots that the others don't really have. I think he's the difference maker that you can bring off from the bench. But yeah, Gordon is my choice for left midfield. I think that is potentially quite contentious. But again, I think this squad is so good that you can't just pick the 11 best players, because those 11 best players are all sort of bunched together in sort of similar positions. They all play number 10. They all play sort of midfield or on the right. And I think there's enough quality in this team to spread it out and play players in the right position. If Gareth Southgate wants to go far in this tournament, that's the thing I would do. So yeah, that's my 11 for the game against Serbia. My next video will be the NUFC Monday show next week, but I'm also going to announce a new Euro show that will start on the day of the tournament on the 14th of June, next Friday. A 5-minute show every day throughout the tournament. Which I'm calling the Euros debrief. So do keep in touch with that as well. Thank you very much for joining me on this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hit that like button because it really does help the algorithm, as I mentioned. And I'll see you next time. Cheers.